From Kern Government Television, welcome to this week's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting, originating from the County Administrative Center located at 1115 Truxtun Avenue, Bakersfield, California. Kern County's vision is to create and maintain a customer-centered county government designed to garner the confidence, support, and trust of the people we serve. Today's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting will convene momentarily.
Board to reconvene. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Peters?
Here.
Supervisor Scrivener?
Here.
Supervisor Maggard?
Here.
Supervisor Couch?
Here.
Supervisor Perez?
Here.
Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to the Tuesday, March 15th, 2022, 2 p.m. meeting of the Board of Supervisors. And first, we're going to hear a report from County Council on any actions taken in closed session. Ms. Rezan?
Good afternoon, Chairman Scrivener, members of the board. This morning you met in closed session on items number 48 and number 49, and there is no reportable action.
Thank you. We're going to start by considering our consent agenda. If you'd like to follow along, agendas are available by the doors in the rear. And so I'm going to start by reading the instructions on the consent agenda. So all items listed with a CA or a C above the item number are considered to be routine and non-controversial by county staff. The CA represents the consent agenda for the Board of Supervisors. The C represents the consent agenda for the Kern Sanitation Authority and the Ford City Taft Heights Sanitation District. Consent items will be considered first and may be approved by one motion. If a member of the audience wishes to comment or ask questions regarding an item on the consent agenda, they may do so prior to a vote being taken. A member of the board may remove any item from the consent agenda and it will be considered in listed sequence with an opportunity for any member of the public to address the board concerning the item before action is taken. And so I will start by reading the consent agenda for the Board of Supervisors. Starting on page 3, items 5 through 7 are on consent. On page 4, items 8 through 10 are on consent. Page 5, items 11 through 14 are on consent. Page 6, items 15 through 20 are on consent. On page 7, all items 21 through 26 are on consent. And on page 8, 27 and 28 are on consent, and then 31 through 34 are on consent. Page 9, all items 35 through 40 are on consent. On page 10, all items 41 through 46 are on consent. And finally, on page 11, items 47 through 50 are on consent. So at this time, I'll ask if there's any members in the audience who would like to make a comment on the consent agenda. Okay, seeing none, then I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda and to adjourn as the Board of Supervisors and reconvene as the Kern Sanitation Authority.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you. So we're now sitting as the Kern Sanitation Authority. We have one item on the consent agenda. That is item number 1 on page 2. Do we have any members of the audience that would like to make a comment on the consent agenda for the Kern Sanitation Authority? Okay, seeing none, then I'll return to the board and ask for a motion to adjourn as the Kern Sanitation Authority and reconvene as the Ford City Taft Heights Sanitation District.
So moved.
Second.
Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you. So we're now sitting as the Ford City Taft Heights Sanitation District. We have one item, that's item number 2 on page 2 of our agenda. And I'll ask if there's any members of the public that would like to comment on this item. Okay, seeing none, then I'll return to the board and ask for a motion to adjourn as the Ford City Taft Heights Sanitation District and reconvene as the Board of Supervisors.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you. We haven't had both of those on for a while. So, all right. So next is item number 3. This is public presentation. So this portion of the meeting is reserved for persons to address the board on any matter not on this agenda, but under the jurisdiction of the board. Board members may respond briefly to statements made or questions posed. They may ask a question for clarification, make a referral to staff for factual information, or request staff to report back to the board at a later meeting. And so at this time, I'll ask if there's any members of the audience that would like to make a public presentation. We ask that you state your name and observe our 2-minute time limit. Good afternoon.
Hi. My name is Lisa Smith, and I am a disabled teacher from the Fairfax School District. I teach at Fairfax Middle School when I'm able to work. I'm here to address the board today about something near and dear to all of you, homelessness and crime. And I know about this because I live in the county area at New Stein and Stockdale in Mr. Maggart's district, and I was on the phone with his office again yesterday about the abandoned house next door in this residential neighborhood where homeless people have been breaking in, setting fires. They even called a sheriff's deputy out one day to help them break into the house so they could get the stuff they left behind when they broke into the house. They're taking deputies off the street for that. So you don't know who I am. I'd like you to know a little bit about me. I moved to Kern County about 50 years ago. One of my first jobs was a senior paralegal for the Family Law Department at Chain Younger, where I worked for Robert Tafoya before he was a judge and retired. During that time, the county was drilling oil wells behind my city property, and I was invited by the City Planning Commission, Jack Hardesty, and the city attorney at the time, Art Stallfield, to participate in as a residential advisor to the Planning Commission to write the Bakersfield Oil Code. I was present in the audience 7 years later when that was passed. I'm here today because my husband has lived in that house that we live in for 70 years. He was born into that house. His family is the McKee, Metler, Ash, and Loudon families. We are invested in this community, and homelessness is not going away. Since the city passed their ordinance against camping, they're getting pushed further into the neighborhoods, and 501(c)(3)s are not getting incentives and not rehabbing properties under Proposition 13, which is something that this board could do to make those incentives available for the some 40% of the homeless population that is families, vets, and college students. I'm willing to volunteer the time that I gave 7 years to the city to help you come up with residential recommendations and things that you can do, and volunteer my paralegal and legal expertise to do that.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. Your time has expired, and we certainly appreciate your comments. So we'll ask if you could please bring them to a close.
That's it.
That's it. Okay. Thank you so much. All right. Do we have any other members of the audience who would like to make a public presentation? Looks like we have one more.
Mr. Chairman, before she,
Yeah, certainly. Mr. Couch.
could I ask her to leave her contact information with Mr. Alsop, who's sitting right over there? Right there. Thank you.
Just a second, that just flipped out of my, there we go. Oh, hi, I just wanted to address the speaker
Sir,
of the follow.
could you please state your name
Oh,
before you
Paul
begin?
Infesti,
Thank you.
District 3. I pulled up some figures based on someone was concerned about doing some sort of recount of the recall election for the Kern County. They spoke after me, so I couldn't address it at that time. But I pulled up the actual records from Kern County, and it did show that Kern County overwhelmingly was yes in favor of the recall by 50,000 votes over the no. So that wouldn't even cover what this alleged 15,000 or so ballots that mysteriously disappeared or not. So the yes was 61.79%, and the no were 38.21%. And these were the official Kern County totals that actually showed that the contention is wrong, that the election counts were wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Okay, seeing none then, we'll move on to board member announcements or reports. Do we have any members of the board? No? Very well, then we will move forward to our two items that are off consent, and that's first, item 29. We have two legislative matters. The first is item 29. This is a proposed resolution requesting suspension of state limitations on oil and gas permitting and extraction to allow local producers to ease supply distributions. And so I will turn to our CAO, Ryan Alsop.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm going to have Mr. Thomas Brown of my office handle this item for us today.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This item is to request your board adopt a resolution requesting the suspension of state limitations on oil and gas permitting and extraction to allow local producers to ease supply disruptions caused by the pandemic and geopolitical tensions in Europe. As your board is fully aware, the Newsom administration has taken action to end the issuance of new fracking permits by 2024 and move the state toward phasing out oil extraction across the state by 2045. The governor has also placed a moratorium on the sale of new gas-powered cars by 2035. Nearly 96% of vehicle miles traveled in the state are powered by fossil fuels. California boasts the world's 5th largest economy and, conversely, is the 2nd largest consumer of petroleum products in the nation, as well as the largest consumer of motor gasoline and jet fuel. Those traveled miles are literally the driving force that keeps California's economy moving forward. Due to the state's adverse policies regarding natural resources, California is 8 times more dependent on foreign oil imports than 3 decades ago and uses over 3 times more oil than it produces, averaging 501,000 barrels produced per day, yet consuming over 1.6 million barrels each day. There are currently no pipelines to bring oil to California from any other part of the United States. Therefore, the state must rely on imported oil to make up its daily usage deficit. As a result, California's imports arrive by sea. The largest oil tankers burn nearly 4 tons of fuel every day they are anchored, and each ship emits more than 11 tons of carbon dioxide per day, with the average oil tanker traveling over 8,000 miles to reach California's ports. Covering those large distances is also not without added expense. Imported foreign oil costs California's consumers an estimated $25 billion a year and is less reliable and less sustainable than oil produced here at home. Oil exporting countries also do not adhere to California's safety, labor, human rights, and environmental standards. In 2020, California imported over 228 million barrels of oil from foreign sources. In 2021, over 15.4 million barrels of oil were imported from Russia, equaling roughly 6.7% of the state's total imports compared to the previous year. The unprovoked Russian invasion of Ukraine and other geopolitical tensions in Europe have stoked market speculation that will inevitably push the price of energy soaring to new heights and negatively impact inflationary trends that will increase the price of consumer goods for all Californians. With the U.S. issuing a ban on Russian oil imports, market conditions will likely become even more volatile, and energy prices will likely remain high over the next several months. The proposed resolution, therefore, requests immediate action by the governor and his administration to suspend all limitations on oil and gas permitting and extraction so that local producers are encouraged to use California's own natural resources to provide economic relief to consumers throughout the state. This policy position is in line with past board actions related to the oil and gas industry and adheres to the core principles adopted by your board in the 2022 legislative platform. The recommended action is for your board to adopt the resolution and authorize staff to coordinate with our lobbyists to engage the governor's office on enacting these requested policy changes. This concludes staff's prepared comments. We're available for any questions your board may have.
Thank you. I'll ask, do any members of the board have any questions or comments before I go to the public? Okay, seeing none, then I'll ask if there's any members of the audience that would like to make any comment on this. We ask that you state your name and observe our 2-minute time limit, please. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Chairman Scrivener and all other board members, good afternoon. I'm David Hartley. That's Hartley. I live in Bakersfield, and I'm a longtime California oil and gas producer. Today, it's my pleasure to be here to see the vote on the resolution asking the governor to lift his illegally imposed suspension of permitting for oil, gas, and attendant service wells. This is a good next step to restoring the right to conduct a lawful activity and to preserve private property rights, which include extraction of needed oil, gas, and minerals. The adoption of this resolution today should be the next step in a full court press against Newsom's unlawful activities. We know from Newsom's past history that he does not respect the rule of law, and it will take other forms of strong action to fully restore our right to extract oil and gas in the safe and environmentally respectful manner in which the California petroleum industry does so. To that end, and on behalf of the oil and gas industry, here we are today. I want to thank this board for your continued support, and we look forward to doing all we can to help this board restore our right to produce. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chairman Scrivener, members of the board. Rachel Glauser here on behalf of Kern Citizens for Energy. We'd like to thank the Board of Supervisors and county staff for your recent resolution to the governor requesting the suspension of state limitations on oil and gas permitting and extraction to allow local producers to ease supply disruptions. As you know, our community is incredibly proud to produce the majority of our state's much-needed oil and natural gas. But due to unrealistic and unproductive regulations, we still import 2/3 of our energy needs from other countries. Those countries do not adhere to California's leading human rights, labor, and environmental standards. California's 39 million residents still demand enormous quantities of oil and natural gas, and the fact is, Kern County can deliver. With much turmoil and uncertainty in the world, it would best serve the people of Kern County and the state at large to take full advantage of our county's production capability. Thank you for standing up for our county and boldly supporting the men and women who work tirelessly to produce the energy that we all use every single day. The tens of thousands of jobs and hundreds of millions in tax revenue that this county could potentially lose translates to fewer, less effective services that we need, like public safety. With the help of our local leaders, we encourage our state government to support the people of Kern County and all of California in producing our much-needed energy right here, right now, under our world-class environmental and human rights standards. Thank you again for your continued support of our oil and gas industry.
Thank you.
Well said.
Who will be next, please? Okay, we don't have any other speakers, then I will return to the board for comment and action. The staff recommendation is to adopt the resolution. We have Supervisor Maggard and then Supervisor Couch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will motion that we authorize and endorse the resolution as it's been drafted by staff, and thank them for executing what our concerns and desires were about that. I think it's worth pointing out today that what we are watching in Europe with the exploitation of the people of Europe, holding them hostage to a demand for gas and oil products that they cannot produce on their own, leaves them vulnerable. And there are those in the world that are today conceiving of any way possible to exploit us in the same manner. And if we voluntarily shut down our own ability to be oil and gas independent, we are putting our head in a noose. And I just cannot emphasize enough to our governor that that's a vulnerable position for us to be in, as well as the unthinkable, unconscionable result of us funding the exploitation and the killing of innocent people in the Ukraine by Vladimir Putin. So why would we do that? So I heartily endorse this message that we send to the governor.
Thank you, Supervisor. Well said. Supervisor Couch?
I'll second your motion, and I just want to thank the chair for asking that this be brought forward. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's getting a little hard to continue to try and speak sense to this administration when it comes to our oil and gas policy in this state, but here we are going to try again. And I think the current events make this incredibly timely and, also poignant. And I want to thank staff for the work that went into this resolution. So we have a motion. Oh, excuse me, Supervisor Peters.
Thank you, Supervisor Scrivener. One point I wanted to bring up, I've worked in the oil industry most of my life and drilling and production on both sides of it. I understand the industry fairly well, and I know how safely it's produced here, how environmentally consciously it's produced. You can't sneeze out there with a safety guy yelling at you. But I look at some of the things that I hear coming from Sacramento and some of the ideals they espouse, which sound well and good. They talk about personal responsibility, but they also talk about protecting indigenous peoples and peoples of color. But then you look at how much oil we import from places like Ecuador. The fastest rainforest destruction in the entire world is happening in Ecuador, and 50% of that oil that's produced there comes to California. So it's not that they're against it, it's that they don't want it in their backyard. And I think that hypocrisy needs to be pointed out. We're very good at drilling for oil here. We've been doing it for a long time, and we could be putting our own people to work and supporting public safety, supporting our schools, and we're just asking the governor for that opportunity. So I just wanted to point that out, and again, thank our chairman for bringing this item forward.
Thank you, Supervisor. So we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
Thank you. The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and also thank you for the folks from our oil industry that came here today to support this. It's important, and we are going to keep bringing this issue to the forefront whenever we see that circumstances speak that we do so. Next item is item number 30, AB 1599. This is Proposition 47 repeal. And so I'll once again turn to our County Administrative Officer, Ryan Alsop.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm going to ask again Mr. Brown if he'd handle this item. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this item is in response to a referral made at your March 1 meeting to consider adopting a letter of support for Assembly Bill 1599, which seeks to repeal various elements enacted by Proposition 47, including the $950 property value threshold for determining felony theft violations. AB 1599 seeks to reduce the felony theft threshold to $400 and would seek approval for these changes by voters at the next statewide general election. For background, Prop 47 was passed by voters in 2014 and changed certain low-level crimes from felonies to misdemeanors. The intent of Prop 47 was to ensure that prison spending is focused on violent and serious offenses, to maximize alternatives for non-serious, non-violent crime, and to invest the savings generated from Prop 47 to support educational programs, victim services, and mental health and drug treatment. Prop 47 has recently come under scrutiny amid an increase in property crime driven primarily by car break-ins and highlighted by a rash of smash-and-grab robberies by organized retail thieves who have ransacked stores, pharmacies, and other businesses. The most recent Crime Trends in California fact sheet, prepared by the Public Policy Institute of California, suggests that crime rates have generally continued to trend upward in 2021 compared to 2020 data points. Notably, Los Angeles, Oakland, San Diego, and San Francisco show increases in property and violent crime numbers in 2021. Based on the most recent data, property crime numbers have returned to pre-pandemic levels. Here locally, last December, the Bakersfield Police Department responded to reports of a smash-and-grab robbery at a jewelry store inside the Valley Plaza Mall. The police department received reports of 4 suspects using tools to break glass display cases at the Kevin Jeweler's storefront. Some shoppers reportedly mistook the sound of the tool impacts on the glass as gunshots, adding more chaos and confusion to the situation. In January 2022, 4 people were arrested near Fort Tejon after they allegedly committed a smash-and-grab robbery at an athletic apparel store in Studio City the day before. The LAPD spotted the suspect vehicle on the 5 freeway in the Santa Clarita Valley and chased them until the California Highway Patrol took over the pursuit, which ended in the vehicle crashing across the county line. Considering all the economic development efforts and investments that have been made at the Tejon outlets, and given their rural location and proximity to the Highway 99 and I-5 freeway interchange, it is not unreasonable to presume that organized thieves could target the stores and disrupt daily commerce. Within close proximity of the outlets, efforts are also underway to develop a Hard Rock Hotel and casino, which could also become a prime target for these types of brazen smash and grab and vehicle break-in crimes. While Los Angeles and the Bay Area are experiencing significantly more smash and grab cases, Kern is certainly prone to these types of crimes, and pursuing legislative remedies now may prevent their prevalence in the future. It's important to note that although it is unlikely AB 1599 will serve as a panacea to recent increases in property crime trends around the state, reducing the threshold for prosecuting theft as a felony could be considered a viable tool to help reduce and hopefully deter the crimes from occurring in the first place. At the very least, AB 1599 reopens the dialogue on criminal justice reform and provides California with the means to examine the efficacy of Prop 47, and it allows voters to ultimately choose the best path forward. AB 1599 had its first hearing in the Assembly Public Safety Committee on March 8, where it failed to pass by a 4-2 vote. The bill was, however, granted reconsideration, meaning the bill could be heard again at a later date by the same Assembly Committee. If the bill fails to advance through the legislative process, a repeal of Prop 47 could be brought to the voters via the ballot initiative process. Given the overall premise of AB 1599, the potential economic and public safety implications for our community, and the direction of your board's referral, the recommended action is for your board to adopt a position in support of AB 1599 and authorize the chairman to sign correspondence to the chair of the Assembly Committee on Public Safety for further discussion and examination of this issue. This concludes staff's prepared comments. We're available for any questions your board may have.
Thank you. I'll ask if there's any members of the audience that would like to make any comment on this item before I return to the board. Okay, seeing none, I'll go to Supervisor Couch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Prop 47 was known as the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act. That's correct? I don't think there's anyone that could say today that 8 years later, 7.5 years later, whatever we are, our neighborhoods are safer and our schools are any safer. So thank you for bringing this forward. The voters usually get it right. Not always, but they usually get it right. But they were duped. They were told that this was the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act, and a lot of people don't read much past that. And so they voted yes for that. I think if they're given another opportunity and they're given the facts and it's titled appropriately, they'll turn this around. So I'm happy to make a motion in support of your recommendation, and I appreciate you bringing it forward. Thank you.
Very well said. Any other comments or a second?
I agree with Supervisor Cash. I'd like to second that motion.
Very good. You have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved, 4 ayes, 1 opposed. Supervisor Perez.
Thank you. Having no additional items to consider, I will entertain a motion to adjourn to Tuesday, March 29th at 9 a.m. We're adjourned.